guys, this is Ben from Road to VR, and we are here once again at CES 2015, and I'm here with Don from Sulon. They are making this really interesting head-mounted display that's got sensors all over it, and they're doing some cool augmented, virtual augmented stuff with it, and so we're just here to learn more about it. So for people who haven't heard about Sulon before, give us the pitch.
Sure. Well, Sulon is a company. We're based in Toronto, Canada. We were established in 2012, and our first product is the Cortex, which is the head-mounted display that you're describing. Do you want me to talk a little bit about the Cortex?
Yeah. So what does the Cortex do?
Sure. So the Cortex does everything that other virtual reality head mounts do, but we're calling the Cortex augmented virtual reality, because it includes elements of virtual reality and elements of augmented reality. Basically, it has a sensor built into it that allows it to scan an environment immediately when you put it on, within 20 meters in all directions, and therefore it can actually sense what the environment is, scan it out, and then display to you what is in the room, and also then convert that into a virtual reality experience as well.
So we saw two demos here. One was more of a gameplay thing, and one was more of a business industry thing. How challenging is it, do you think, it will be to get game developers to work with all the sensors and create an environment that can customize itself for the every user's space?
Sure. Well, thinking about the games segment specifically, we'll have more stuff to announce at GDC. We'll be at GDC, which is in March in San Francisco. We definitely understand that any technology requires both content and the hardware. So we know that we need to work with developers to be able to have them have the tools to be able to make content, but they also need there to be a market to make it work for them. So we're working on that. We'll have more to announce, especially on the gaming side, at GDC.
Okay, and as for the headset itself, would you go? I know we're not getting too technical. That's part of the strategy right now. But would you go so far as to talk about the various sensors, not necessarily the technologies, but what are you tracking? What are you sensing? And how can that be used in games?
Sure. Well, so the first thing is, the headset has many processors built into it. So you don't plug into an external device like a PC or a laptop, etc., which allows you then to walk around. The sensor, there's one main sensor that, as I said, basically continuously scans your environment. So you don't need to be in a room. You can basically use it outside. There's also two cameras on the front, which allow motion gesture recognition. It has all the regular accelerometers and so on that'll allow the traditional tracking, head tracking. So on top of all the stuff that you would have in a unit that you would use in a sort of a small environment, this also has other sensors, including some proprietary stuff that'll allow you to move around and explore yourself in a 360-degree room.
And are you talking about the weight at all at this point?
We are not talking about the weight. We understand that's obviously an issue. One of the things, we'll call it a feature, because it has the sensor at the back, it actually does balance the weight over the head more. We know that people are going to want it to be comfortable, so we're going to try to compress the weight as much as possible. That said, it's also, because it's wireless, you can also use it as a wired device if you prefer. But because we're designing it as a wireless device, it also has a battery pack in it. So, over time we'll be able to continue to make it lighter and lighter, but it's actually quite comfortable. Like you've tried it on, that weight is basically going to be a little bit heavier than the final version. So I think it's at a decent weight.
And so for those who are used to like the Oculus Rift, let's say, where they're focusing on a seated gaming experience, this is different. It's you can move around an environment. Can you explain that to people who haven't quite seen this?
Yeah, so it's a little bit difficult to describe if you haven't had the experience. But yeah, so our headset does everything that any other VR tablet or VR headset would do, because it's got all that same functionality. But what it allows you to do is to create an environment or perceive of an environment that includes real parts, such as walls, like in this room. So if the viewer was looking at us right now, they could actually see everything just as it is in real life. They could also basically have parts of it augmented so that it maybe looks like the walls are green, or that we're wearing different clothes or whatever. But it also allows you to, in the same way that other different kinds of head-mounted displays will allow leaning in and out, it does all those things except at a total 360-degree in a 360-degree view. So you can approach an item, you can look, change your direction, change your perspective on it, walk around it. So it's hard to describe how that makes it different, but everyone we've spoken to has really acknowledged that it is a very different experience than just the pure VR experience.
And so the design that we saw, is that what the first release product is going to look like? Is that a development kit?
So we've created, and you've taken some photos so the viewers will see it, but we've created a prototype to show what we expect the general form of it to look like, mostly to give people a sense of the size. We are going to be refining it. We know that the final version will be probably a little bit smaller. We'll have some more inputs than are actually shown on this non-functional prototype that we've shown you, but it's generally in that neighborhood. Our first prototypes were huge, just as a proof of concept. We're now getting it to being a real legitimate consumer product that people could wear.
And so for that first, like the first time it's going to become available, are you guys going dev kit to developers, or are you going straight to consumers and also developers?
So yeah, so it's a little bit of it's just what you call it. You know, a consumer could buy it and call it, you know, even though it's a dev kit. We need to get developers on board to understand what it is, and also not just game developers, but anyone who can understand the value and the importance of this type of new experience. So the first version that will be coming out will be more focused at developers. We're putting a lot of effort into making sure they have the tools that they need to work with their existing workflow and allow them to experiment in making great content.
Okay, and then let's get as deep as you can go or willing to go right now in terms of just straight up specs.
Sure.
Just resolution, field of view?
So the final version that will be coming out, or the first version that will be coming out, we haven't determined the final field of view. The display will be at least 1080p. We're not going to describe more than that. We know we also have to be competitive with the other products that are in the marketplace, but we also know we need to keep the price at a point where a consumer is willing to pay it. The field of view will be determined largely by other optics decisions. We want to make sure that the experience is very, very clear because we've got, you know, HD plus display. We want to make sure we're not reducing that too much by increasing too wide of a field of view that doesn't add benefit to the user. And
so you brought up my next question, price.
So yeah, it's available for pre-order right now. It's $499 US. If you go to sulontechnologies.com, you can actually fill in a pre-order form, and we'll be shipping in 2015 in this calendar year.
Okay, and so for the last question, you were talking about how you could use it as basically just a head mount for a desktop gaming experience. Is there any concept of having it be modular so you could take the sensor off, make it lighter if you're using it for that specific use?
Yeah, we've looked at different forms, and I didn't show you, but we have one that doesn't have the sensor included. We think that one of the key differentiators is the spatial awareness, but we are looking at different options as far as that's concerned, and that would obviously reduce the price as well. But we know that there are other competitors that are making great VR headsets, so we're not trying to compete directly on that type of experience.
And actually, final question this time.
Sure, yeah.
So it seems to me like you have all these sensors, and they appear to be primarily computer vision based, which is obviously kind of still an unsolved problem. Are you guys taking it onto yourselves internally to try to fix that problem, or are you relying on kind of the rest of the industry and their work to make that good enough that it's good enough for to go to market?
Sure. Well, we're always trying to see what other people are doing to learn from what they're doing. But we're pretty confident in our ability to solve some of those very difficult technical challenges. So we've got a really star team with some really smart people, and I think some of it we can't talk about because it's very proprietary, but I think anyone who tries our headset will actually be quite impressed and see how we've solved some of those problems.
Okay, so internally you guys are working specifically on computer vision?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
All right, great, Don. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.